Hi, friends. When we left off last week, Gib had just typed in, let me make sure I get the number right, 1,421 seconds and pressed the big red order button. You had lots of guesses about what time he would end up in. So let's find out if you were right. Chapter 8 is called Wading Through Time. All right, I admit it. Math isn't my best subject. Everybody, including my teachers, keeps telling me I'd be great if I'd just be more careful. I understand all the ideas. I even think some of them are fun. It's like math is the most complicated puzzle ever invented, full of patterns and surprises and strange little things to discover. All the same, my math grades aren't so hot. I'm always getting the wrong answers because I forget to carry a 1, or I get distracted and say 8 times 7 is 42 instead of 56. I'm even worse when I'm under pressure, and I was definitely under pressure. I kept my eyes closed after I punched the red button this time, waiting for the smell of popcorn, excuse me, and the noise of the rides before I opened them again. Imagine my shock when I heard coughs and rustling papers instead, as a man's voice intoned, "You may dunk the skins in water, pour ammonia onto them from this bottle, expose them to heat and moving air from the blow dryer, squeeze lemon juice onto them, or devise an experiment of your own. All right now, let's get started." I opened my eyes and found myself seated in the school science lab, staring at Mr. Maynard. I glanced to my right, and there was Rainey Frogner at my elbow, scribbling stuff in a notebook as fast as she could. The sun was shining through the windows as bright as could be, and the clock on the wall said 9:34. I had on the t-shirt I'd worn Friday, olive green with a picture of a werewolf, and my watch, which I knew I'd left at home, was on my wrist. My hands were completely empty. The unner was nowhere to be seen. I patted the pockets of my jeans. Nothing. I scooted my stool back and peered under the lab table. Nothing. I grabbed my backpack, tugged open the zipper, and began to rummage through it. I was breathing hard and starting to sweat. Where could the unner be? Something had gone terribly wrong. "I think we should do the lemon juice," said Rainey. "I hate the way ammonia smells." She laid down her pen and gave me a look. Is everything all right, Gib?" Before I could consider the consequences, I found myself blurting in an angry voice, "Do I look like everything's all right?" Rainey leaned back and curled her lip. "Sheesh, I'm sorry I asked." I closed my eyes and tried to make my heart slow down to something resembling normal speed. Panicking never helped anybody, I told myself. Think, what's going on here? If I was back in science class, then I'd a lot more time than I'd planned. But how much more? "What's 1,421 divided by 60? I asked. My tongue made sticky noises because my mouth was so dry. "Oh, right, just off the top of my head," said Rainey. I opened my eyes, looked hard at her, and said, "I'm serious." She frowned, picked up her pen again, and scratched a few figures in the margin of her notebook. 23, with a remainder of 41. So that was it. Somehow I'd messed up the math and ended up unning 23 hours and 41 minutes, instead of the 12 or 13 hours I'd expected. I was back in the middle of Friday morning, about to relive the worst day of my life in its entirety, which explained why I didn't have the unner. The moment in which I currently found myself had happened before Rainey would phone to say she was sick, before I would run into the woods, and before I would meet the old man. I didn't have the unner because the old man wouldn't be giving it to me until later that afternoon. I scratched absently at the tip of my nose, where I expected to feel the fresh scab from the scrape I'd gotten when I tripped and lost the unner in the woods. But my nose was completely smooth. The thought of knowing, among other things, that I was going to fall down and hurt myself later that day made me kind of woozy. Cripes, I muttered, wishing I could lie down someplace. Cripes. What is wrong with you? Asked Rainey. I said, a new thought had left me completely paralyzed. What if I accidentally said or did something different this time? Something that changed the chain of events enough so the old man didn't show up that afternoon. Oh my goodness, I keep yawning. I need to not do this at nighttime for you guys. For all I knew, I'd already messed things up completely, just by asking Rainey to do division for me. I read a story once in which a time traveler accidentally changed the whole future just by killing a butterfly. But I didn't want to change the whole future, I just wanted to save Roxy. And if possible, I also wanted to get the honor again. Nothing's wrong, I said, breathing carefully. Huh, said Rainey, unconvinced. Whatever. So, shall we put some lemon juice on our potato skins? Lemon juice, I yelped. No, no, we can't. Rainey squinched her face up and stared at me as if I'd developed a rash of green spots. Hastily, I added, I mean, we can, but let's not. I strained to remember the exact words I'd used yesterday, or what felt like yesterday. Everybody's going to do lemon juice. Let's do something original, like put salt on ours. Salt? Rainey frowned. I don't know. Where would we get salt? I pointed. There's a box on the shelf. I'll go get it. I stood up and walked across the room. Somehow I knew I was doing it exactly the way I'd done it the last time. I could feel a faint force, like a wheel, wanting to stay in a groove, or the pull of a magnet that made doing the same things over again just a little easier than changing them. Maybe if I stopped thinking so hard and did what felt easiest, I'd be okay. Sometimes you get a feeling like everything that's happening has happened before. Dad told me one time there's a French term for it, déjà vu, which means seen before. Boy, did I ever have déjà vu now. For the next little while, I let events take place by themselves. I felt almost as if I were hovering somewhere behind my own right shoulder, observing as things I knew would happen actually happened. First, I watched myself convince Rainey the salt would be better than the lemon juice. Then I watched myself convince her we ought to spread the skins out instead of piling them up. Then I listened to myself with growing discomfort as I tried to talk her into salting them heavily instead of lightly. If you're thinking to yourself about what happens next, that's a good idea. So think about what happened the first time Gib lived this experience. I knew what was coming. We were about to have a fight, and Rainey would end up pouring the whole box of salt in my lap. Then I thought if I changed one thing just a little bit, I might be able to avoid the anger and frustration of being called selfish in front of everybody and having to clean up the salty mess from under the table. Would that be so bad? Part of me said yes, it would be bad. Possibly worse than bad. Immoral. What if there was some kind of master plan and I messed it all up? Did I have the right to do something that might change the future of everybody else in the world? I'd be doing it entirely to make my own life easier, and I wasn't asking anybody else what they wanted. It didn't feel right. But a different part of me, the most persuasive part as it turned out, thought it was a great idea not to relive this particularly embarrassing scene. So what if Rainey felt a little kinder toward me? I couldn't see how that would change anything major in the long run. Not in a bad way, at least. After all, wasn't this exactly the kind of thing the honor was meant for? If I wasn't supposed to change anything, why had the old man given me the honor in the first place? All right, I'm going to stop there. I want you to go and look at the question that I have for you today, and then we'll read some more later this week.